so much, so much death and dying, personally and professionally. And I think maybe it at some point became too much for my consciousness to handle, and that's when Zirit life kicked in to protect me.
Welcome to Conversation for the Soul. I'm Linda Christine, and today I am here with Tricia Schuster. Hello, Tricia. Welcome. It's so wonderful to have you here.
Oh, thank you, Linda. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm happy to be on here with you.
I have to say, I have been following Tricia for probably 2 years, maybe, on Instagram, and your joy and your authenticity and everything that comes through with you. And if you're not following Tricia on Instagram, you got to go do it because I especially love it when you're charging your car and you're skating around, skating
Yeah.
for peace, and the Zirit, which is zany spirit,
Yeah.
is so beautiful. Tell me how that came to be and how you came to be on this higher consciousness path that you're on.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm super excited to have the opportunity to share it. It's been a very interesting journey, and I'll just start from the day it downloaded, for lack of a better word. And so it was on March 1st, 2011, and I was at my son's soccer practice. And my boys were maybe 4 and 6 at the time, so young. And I'm a yoga instructor, also a registered nurse, but was very much into the yoga community and teaching yoga. And during their soccer practice on this beautiful day, I wanted to go and practice my handstands up against this big, beautiful oak tree at soccer practice. Um, and I didn't do it because I was embarrassed of what the other parents would think. Like, oh, she's crazy. Who's that crazy mom doing handstands over the tree? And I had this like a horrible sinking feeling like, Tricia, what has your life come to that you're too embarrassed to go do these fun, healthy, playful handstands up against a tree, even though you're, 40 something years old, and it was a very, very sad moment to me. Like, is this what my life has come to, and like too embarrassed to just be myself. And so then the day went on. I fell asleep that night. And in the still of the night on March 2nd, 2011. And I remember that, the date is so important to me because it happens to be Dr. Seuss's birthday. Dr. Seuss's birthday. And the boys and I were reading, my boys were reading a lot of Dr. Seuss because they were celebrating it at their preschool. So um, and the word is kind of a Dr. Seussy type word, Zirit. So I don't know. I just feel like there's some correlation there or something with his energy. Anyways, I was awakened in the still of the night. I don't know exactly what time it was, maybe between 2 and 3 in the morning. And I was lying on my right side, and I was awakened by something I heard. It wasn't like hearing an actual voice, but it was a hearing. I call it a hearing knowing, a hearing knowing. Like I heard this something, and it kind of came through the back of my neck here on the left side, and I just heard very clearly, Tricia, you're a Zirit, a zany spirit, and you just do what feels right in the present moment.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the very next moment, I heard, and you're here to help create world peace through inner peace, one moment at a time. You're here to help create world peace through inner peace, one moment at a time. So it was that clear. Tricia, you're a Zirit, a zany spirit. I think Tricia, you're a Zirit, a zany spirit. If these parents know you're a Zirit, they'll know you just do what feels right in the present moment. And you're here to help create world peace through inner peace, one moment at a time. Very clear channeling. I have no idea what the heck it is, Linda, where it comes from. Is it my own higher consciousness? Is it does reveal itself as the color blue. It comes through as the color blue. So yeah, this cobalt blue energetic entity that channels through the back of my neck. And that's all I really know about it. Yeah.
Wow, wow,
Yeah.
that's fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've been told I have a giant, like 2, 3 story blue being
Oh,
that's behind me all the time, and I can feel it behind me, but
whoa.
I can't see it, but I know it's there.
Wow.
And I didn't know it was blue, so that's kind of cool.
That
Maybe it's
is
a Zirit too.
maybe. Well, and the very next morning, the phrase Zirit life came to me. Zirit life again came from somewhere, not from my thinking mind, like, oh, I want to call this Zirit life, but Zirit life came to me. And that's the name of my LLC. I actually had Zirit life, the term trade. I've had it, have a registered trademark on it for whatever that's worth. I just, but Zirit life. But now I've come to know like Zirit life seems to be this almost like a committee of entities back here. Zirit life is the entity or the committee that channels through back here, and it's this cobalt blue. It's cobalt blue, beautiful blue energy. Um, and it definitely comes through the back of the fifth chakra, and the fifth chakra is the color blue. So
Now, isn't it, maybe you don't know this, but don't they think that the soul resides like right back here at the base of the skull?
well, I don't know a whole lot about that from other things that I've read. I do know that shortly after all that happened, I would use a tennis ball and a tube sock to massage my shoulders and my glutes, just to help loosen my joints for my yoga practice or whatever. And then I was prompted to bring the tennis ball and tube sock up to my neck. And because, I thought to myself, oh my God, I hold all my tension up here. Let me bring this tennis ball up here and see what's going on. I started doing that. And Linda, I mean, I know this sounds dramatic, but when I started meditating on this occipital ridge, the base of the skull here, and I stumbled upon these acupressure points, this very intense sensation, it literally changed the trajectory of my life when I started doing that, to the point where I was like, something so profound is going on with when I meditate on this occipital ridge, this base of the skull. I started Googling it, like acupressure points at the base of the skull. And they're actually the GB20 acupressure points. GB20 acupressure points are on either side of where the spine enters into the skull, on either side, maybe half an inch. And in ancient acupressure texts, they were referred to as the mouth of God, these two acupressure points. Yeah. And now in more
Wow.
recent acupressure texts, they're referred to as the gateway to consciousness. And I mean, so yeah, I mean, I have this whole theory that this is where like life channels through us, or this is what connects us to the collective consciousness or something. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It really resonates. I can feel that
That's
as you're saying it.
wild. That's
So
wild.
prior to Zirit
Hmm.
coming online,
Hmm.
what was your life like? Talk about your life, who Tricia was before the Zirit came in.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Because, I think it's a significant part of this. So thank you so much for asking. Um, and my son is in the next room talking. I don't know if you can hear him, Linda,
Nope.
but okay, okay, okay. So prior to that, I had some pretty significant trauma, and now I'll be careful about how I deliver and what I deliver on here, but I definitely unequivocally was born a highly sensitive person, an HSP, from very, very young. I knew something was different with that and with how I was wired, and didn't have words to it back then, but definitely process things differently than most. And then in high school had a very traumatic event happen to our family. Uh, I left for cheerleading camp early one morning at 4 o'clock in the morning, and a man walked through the front door of our house. And I mean, am I okay to?
Oh, absolutely. Share whatever you're comfortable sharing.
Okay. Yeah. So a man walked through the front door of our house and raped my sister at gunpoint. And he had walked through the whole house. He knew where my brothers were sleeping, where my parents were sleeping, and
Oh my God.
yeah. And the night before, my sister heard something outside her window, like rustling outside her window, to the point where she asked if I would come in and sleep with her. She was scared. So I slept with her that night. And then I got up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go to cheerleading camp. I was a junior in high school, and that's when he walked. We left our doors unlocked back then. I mean,
Mm.
that was 35 years ago. We left our front door unlocked all the time. So I left the door unlocked, and he walked through the front door, and that created a very significant ripple effect of trauma in the entire family unit. And I think another significant variable, Linda, is that both of my parents are atheists, and we didn't have any spirituality or any religion or any connection to anything beyond the physical world to bring us any comfort or to help make sense of this. And um, so I do think that's a significant variable, and the whole processing of that. And then when I was 23, um, I had been dating a guy for about 4 years. I started dating him when I was 19, and uh, we lived together and everything. And he ended up dying in a hang gliding accident. He crashed in a lake and drowned. And so that was another very significant trauma. And and then a year later, uh, when I was finally ready to start dating, and within that year after he died, I started nursing school. I started nursing school within that year, and I was working as a nurse assistant at Tampa General Hospital, actually. And I ended up meeting this really nice internal medicine resident when I was working there. And this was a year after Drew had died in the hang gliding accident. And so I started dating this guy, and we had been dating for about 3 months. And he was a juvenile diabetic and had an insulin pump implanted, I think in his leg. Uh, and I was about, I guess, 24 or 25 at this point in time. So that was relatively new technology, this implanted insulin pump. And we had been dating for about 3 months. He had had a party at his house. I was there. I left, went home, and then got a knock on the door the next day from his roommate that they had found him dead from a diabetic seizure because the pump had malfunctioned, and he had diabetic seizure, choked on a sandwich, and died. And so then, just back to back.
Tricia, what were you doing at this point to even start to process this stuff? Because
um,
my God, that's a lot.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, not much. I wasn't doing much at the time. I just was uh, trudging along. And then I graduated from nursing school, and I started working in the trauma intensive care unit at Tampa General Level 1 Trauma Center. So I'd had these subsequent traumatic losses in my own life, and then I just kind of instantly started
A
or very
job of
quickly just,
trauma.
yeah,
Oh my
yeah. I mean,
God.
yeah, you know, um, just the worst of the worst were flown into Tampa General, the level 1 trauma center for the region. So it was like being a frontline trauma worker, and did that for 10 years. And um, this was all before Zirit came to me. And I do think that Zirit could possibly, it could be some sort of um, protective mechanism for my cumulative PTSD. There could be a correlation there somehow, the cumulative trauma with this mysterious entity or higher consciousness that's here to protect me, because there's absolutely nothing that brings me more comfort than my connection to this, whatever it is, this Zirit life entity. So, um, and then there's been even more trauma, but that gives you enough.
Well, keep going because, here's the thing. These stories are great teachers for
Yeah.
people. And
Uh-huh.
there's people out there that I am sure that have had significant issues like this happen to them in their own life and
Mm.
maybe are at a loss as to what to do or, so whatever you're comfortable sharing.
Thank you. Yeah. It just well, after working in the trauma ICU for 10 years and seeing so many horrible deaths without peace or dignity, and people with ventilators down their throat and their hands restrained to beds, and just family not allowed at bedside, just very um, horrible death. And I remember walking into my nurse manager's office one day and saying there has to be a better way for people to die when it's their time. And from that point forward, started digging and researching and gathering information around palliative care programs. This was in 2003, so over 20 years ago. Started um, basically spearheading palliative care, and not a lot of people know what palliative care is. Palliative care, hospice, and palliative care are typically lumped together. Palliative care is end of life care. Um, um, to palliate means to make comfortable. So I ended up spearheading the first palliative care consultation team in the entire state of Florida. Um, Back in 2003, and that is what grew out of um, being faced with so many deaths that could have been so much more peaceful, and and actually had another boyfriend die uh, along somewhere throughout that. I forget the exact year that was, and we weren't dating. We had stopped dating a couple of years prior, but he was found floating in the bay, in the Tampa Bay, from an overdose, and um, he was also a resident at the hospital. So just so much so much death and dying, personally and professionally. And I think maybe it at some point became too much for my consciousness to handle, and that's when Zirit Life kicked in to protect me. I'm still very, very passionate about helping people at the end of life. It's still something that I'm very, very drawn to. Um, at one point, a few years ago, I started contemplating, like, Tricia, why are you so drawn to this? Is it an overcompensation because you really have this deep fear of death and you're trying to overcompensate by immersing yourself and working with people at the end of life? And man, I thought, is it some sort of morbid something or other that I don't understand? Um, but then I had a very beautiful aha moment where it's like, no, I'm actually drawn to this type of palliative care, end of life care, um, because it's very high vibrational as people are transitioning from this life, and all the stuff that we worry about, all the things that all starts to fall away, and all that's left is pure love and light. So I started to realize I was just like being vibrationally drawn to this very high vibrational sacred time of transition. So even though I've had this trauma and tragedy, I've also found this very much a sacredness and a beauty, and a natural the natural element to death, and how it's just a natural part of the cycle. So
What was going on for you spiritually, being raised atheist
mhm,
and seeing all these people so close to you passing
mhm.
and struggling with whatever health issues they were having? What did that shift in you? Did it shift anything? Did it make you question God? Did it make solidify your atheist beliefs? What was going on?
No, that's another great question. And I attribute my yoga and meditation practice to really saving my life. I mean, 1 zillion% my yoga practice, and I even want to give somebody specifically a shout out on here. Her name is Chai Prieto. She was a local yoga instructor here for many years, and I started going to her yoga classes in my 20s when all of this was happening, and the multiple deaths. And she would talk about God in her yoga classes, and in our household we made fun of people who went to church and said the word God. I mean, we couldn't even say the word God in my household growing up. And so when I heard Chai in these yoga classes in a very easy, organic, inclusive, energetic way talking about God, and I finally it started to I started to have a comfort level and really take to it, and resonate, and found my spirituality through yoga basically, and really um, Chai, my first yoga instructor, was the one who really opened that door for me, and I am forever, forever grateful to her, because ever since then I feel an incredibly strong connection to, and I'll say God, I'll say collective consciousness, I'll say divine intelligence. The words are just signposts to that which can't be seen but only felt, and so it's my yoga and meditation that really saved my life through all of this, truly, truly, and still does every single day. Yeah.
Can you describe what that shift felt like internally? What kinds of things, feeling wise, were coming up for you as you shifted from this
Mhm.
non-belief to this belief?
Yeah. No, I mean, my gosh, Linda, thank you so much for these questions. Wow. To reflect on all this, what a gift. Because it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. I have been on and off, I'd say 3 different times, anti-anxiety medicine, because I have had very significant anxiety, pretty debilitating at times, and where there was not enough yoga or meditation. I would do 2 yoga classes a day, trying to sometimes break this um, anxious cycle. And there were times when I needed the pharmaceuticals for 6 or 8 months to help kind of rebalance my brain chemistry, and then I would be able to wean off of them and find a sense of balance and equanimity through yoga and meditation again. And then you know another handful of times the anxiety sort of took on a life of its own, um, and I would have to go back on Lexapro. At one point, I was on Lexapro for about 2 years for generalized anxiety. Um, and so, and I think a lot of that was because I couldn't openly talk about this stuff in my family of origin. I still can't. I mean, I do now. I kind of just unapologetically share it with my family, and I love my family dearly. I have a sister and 2 brothers, my parents, and we're all here, and it's a very beautiful unit. But um, that has definitely been a difficult aspect to navigate, is how to, you know, then they all, think I'm crazy and weird for all this spiritual stuff. But I've gotten to the point where, you know what, I own it and know uh, that it's real. It's more real than real. And so, yeah, but it was very tricky to navigate. And I think a source of my anxiety is not um, feeling a sense of safety and security in my family of origin, just being my um, full authentic self.
I
Yeah.
feel like you're a trauma breaker in your family. A lot of us spiritual, higher consciousness folks seem to be trauma breakers.
Oh, I've
What
never heard that term.
if, well, we carry ancestral trauma with
Uh-huh.
us as well as our trauma from this lifetime and other lifetimes and from our family and lineage. Do you know if I'm kind of wondering, is the fact that your parents were atheists, was there something in their life and your grandparents' life that drove them to shut God out? And maybe you are breaking that cycle.
Mm. Uh, yes, although it's interesting because my great grandmother, my mother's grandmother, was what, and she had a master's degree in nursing. So my great grandmother had a master's degree in nursing from Ohio State, which I think that may have been like the first master's degree open to women. It was, um, and uh, she was also, she called herself a spiritualist, and she ran a spiritualist church up in Pennsylvania. So that's my mother's grandmother, deeply steeped in spirituality. And but somehow it did not get passed down to my grandmother, her daughter, or my mother. And actually the pendulum swung the other way where it was
That's
that sort of thing was shut
interesting.
down. Yeah, yeah. And my mom still has some sermons that my great grandmother had written and read. I forget the name of the spiritualist church up in Pennsylvania, but it was kind of like a Casadega, Casadega here in Florida, the little spiritualist community
Yeah, yeah,
thing.
I
Yeah,
love it.
I
And
know.
they're tied to one in upstate New York.
Oh, okay. I
Yeah,
didn't
they
know
used to
that.
travel back. Everybody look up Casadega. It's pretty fascinating. It's a little
Yeah.
spiritual community in Florida, not far from Orlando, but they had a camp up in New York. And then in the winter time, they would take the train down to Casadega, kind of
I
go back
didn't
and forth.
realize that. Maybe I think it was in Pennsylvania, the spiritualist church, but maybe it
Oh,
was.
it absolutely could have been,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. It has since closed. But oh, what I was saying is that my mom still has sermons that my great grandmother has written. They're tucked away in some chest that she has, cedar chest, and I've been asking her to get them out for me. I need to read those. I need to read those. Part of me wonders if I channel her energy.
Oh, wow, that would be
Yeah,
so fascinating to get.
yeah, yeah. So yes, thank you for that prompt because
If you get those
yeah,
and you're open to sharing them, I would love to do
yeah,
another podcast.
yeah, heck yeah, yes, uh, yeah,
Wow.
there
Okay,
could be a lot.
so you've moved through an overwhelming amount of trauma. You have two boys. Were you ever married? Are you married?
I was married, and I'm divorced now. I was married for about 15 years, and have had overall a very amicable, conscious co-parenting um, situation.
Oh, that's
That,
beautiful.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's definitely been a tricky thing to navigate, and I, have to be mindful or want to be mindful of what I share around that. But that has definitely been another source of a lot of stress and anxiety at times. But luckily, the overarching theme is that we provide a very amicable, conscious co-parenting situation to our boys. My boys are 16 and 18 now. Um,
I've seen you share them share
yeah,
with you your your meditation and everything online.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful to see teenage boys that are open
Mm.
to this. Good job, Mama. Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, we'll see it, how it all plays out and how
Oh,
we
I bet
do.
if it
But
even went away for a little bit, it'd come right back.
I feel like the seeds are there. The seeds are absolutely there. No, it's so,
How did you do that? Share with other parents how that came
ah,
about.
I have goosebumps all over just thinking about it now because, well, I started with them before they could even talk, really. Just started sitting down with them and just walking them through little guided meditations, even if they would be crawling all over the place. Just started planting the seeds very young. Every single night before bed, when they were young, we would do a little meditation, and then I would say to them, may all beings be peaceful, may all beings be peaceful, may all beings be peaceful. The light in me honors the light in you. Thank you, God, for all that is, because I want my boys to be comfortable saying the word God, because I know how detrimental it was to me to not be able to feel that connection. And now, and they can figure out what their connection to a higher power of their understanding, you know. Um, so, yeah, so just started with them very young, and it just became, uh, they didn't know any different. And the connection I have with them, I attribute 100% to those few moments each day of meaningful connection has had benefits and impacts in their life and in my life and in our connection beyond what my mind can even understand. Um, yeah.
What things have you seen come out of them that really warm your heart? That you're kind of like, oh, wow, I did good.
Mm-hmm. Well, they're very typical teenagers in a lot of ways and have their own struggles in their own way. But they're so wise and so compassionate, um, and just so awake and so aware and tuned in. All this being said, though, Linda, I have moments sometimes where I think, oh my gosh, are they almost too awake and aware? And it's difficult to navigate this modern life as it is when you're this wide awake person in this teenage boy body. And it does, it has created, I think, some struggle. And then being super, super aware from a lifelong practice of meditation and understanding that these systems are broken and ineffective, and what is all this for, all this tasky work at school, and why is all this violence happening, when all they know is just love and for all sentient beings.
Mm,
So does that
yeah.
does that make sense? Like,
Oh, I know how hard it is for me some
yeah,
days where I'm
yeah,
just like, why the F am I here?
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
so I can't imagine my teenage self dealing with that because I was a mess.
yeah, yeah. So I kind of actually now backed away a little bit because I know I planted so much seeds. Now I want them to kind of find their relationship to it. I don't want to impose it so much on them right now, but let them navigate their relationship and how much do they want it in their life. And um, something that's coming up that I'm prompted to share. I was saying how I've dealt with generalized anxiety, and in 2017, when medical cannabis became legal, and I got very interested in it for its potential role with people at the end of life because of my passion for palliative care, hospice care. So I started immersing myself and learning about um, medical cannabis. And I was at a conference and I happened to sit next to a physician at one of the first medical cannabis conferences here in Tampa when it all became legal. And I was telling him a little bit about my story and my anxiety and sleep issues. I've had long-standing sleep issues also. And he said to me, Tricia, I don't necessarily think it's just generalized anxiety. He said, I think that the anxiety is from cumulative PTSD. And that was in 2017. And it had never even entered my mind that I was dealing with post-traumatic stress from the accumulation of things. This psychiatrist I'd been seeing for years never ever mentioned PTSD to me. So I'm that that was a very pivotal moment where it made me realize that yeah, this anxiety was coming from this cumulative trauma. And I bring that up in the context of my boys because I've also been very, very dialed in to not inadvertently pass on my trauma to them, you know.
And I'm glad you brought it up because I still think there's a misnomer on PTSD that it's, oh, just those who went off to war and saw horrific things happen.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
not.
No, it's not. It's absolutely not. It's absolutely not. And there are micro traumas and there are macro traumas, and there's a spectrum for sure. But I think we're almost at a point in how we're existing in this present day that most of us have some degree of cumulative trauma. Just turning on the news creates a trauma response in the amygdala and the central nervous system. And it's not to take away from people who have had very severe,
No,
obvious.
absolutely not. No, but yes, I agree with you 100%. I used to
Mhm.
work in the world of news and I had televisions in my office for the 8 to 10 hours I was there a day playing every single channel. And I
Yeah.
recovered from stage 3 cancer after that. So,
Wow.
it's to be looked
Wow.
at. And they're saying a lot of people from 2020
Mm.
that just weren't ready to be separate, be alone. A lot of
Mhm.
people don't know how to be alone,
Mm-mm.
be shut off from other people, and that created trauma for people.
Mhm.
So there's so many levels.
So many levels, so many levels, so many levels. And, you know, another interesting level is that, and Dr. Gabor Mate, are you familiar with
That name
Gabor?
sounds really familiar.
Yeah, yeah. Oh man, you have to search him up, Linda. He's definitely one of the leading voices of our time on all things trauma. And he actually put a documentary out about a year ago or so. I still haven't watched it because it's through this, you can only access it through this website. I haven't made the effort to watch it yet, but just the title alone, it's called The Wisdom of Trauma. The Wisdom of Trauma. And the title alone so deeply resonates that I think talking about trauma doesn't have to be doom and gloom, that there's information in here that we need to propel us forward, that this is life trying to get us uncomfortable. So we will do the work of evolving, of actively participating in the evolution of consciousness, starting with our very own self. So life knows
Yeah.
what it's doing.
And perhaps even shift you
Mhm.
into another situation to get out of one that's unhealthy and causing the trauma and move you
Yeah,
into another one so
right,
you can
right,
reflect back on that and
right.
learn.
It's
Mm.
that thing, it's not what happens to us, it's what we do, it's what we do with what happens to us. And I unequivocally know it's my hardship and trauma has ultimately become one of the greatest gifts in my life, because otherwise I wouldn't be doing this very deep, meaningful, purposeful work if I didn't have the pain that I've had. So it's,
So Tricia, what if somebody's sitting here watching right now, and this is not medical advice? You should always seek a medical practitioner of some sort. But what, in your experience, can you outline what PTSD might look like? If somebody thinks, well, gosh, I've gone through a lot of traumas, I wonder if I have PTSD. What are some of the signals that you got?
Mhm. A big one for me is sleep, disrupted sleep patterns that started probably about 10 or 11 years ago, and have carried on even still to this point. I definitely, I'm sorry, excuse me. No, there's a correlation with the cumulative trauma in the disrupted sleep, because I wake up in the middle of the night with irrational thoughts, with panic, with flashbacks. So definitely sleep issues can be an indication of some cumulative trauma, um, feelings of anxiety, feelings of overwhelm, feelings of impending doom, uh, even physical manifestations. I feel fortunate up to this point that, because I have been so aware right along through my meditation practice, been very aware, and have kept my finger on the pulse of what's going on with me emotionally, energetically, spiritually, that knock on wood, it hasn't manifested as chronic illness or uh, um, uh, I have pretty chronic tension in the back of my neck, and mainly left shoulder. Um, but again, I circle back to, I think this is where life is trying to get our attention. Like, who doesn't have tension in their neck? I mean, maybe this tension, this epidemic, you know, tension in the neck that pretty much every human experiences. Maybe this is where life is, trying to say, knock, knock, pay attention right here. Just pay attention right here where the sensation is. Pay attention right here where the sensation is. And from that paying attention mode, by paying attention to what's calling our attention, i.e., the neck pain, um, life can channel through us. The next appropriate step can reveal itself. So, yeah, I've kind of taught myself to pay attention to the sensations in the body, the discomforts with the sleep, with the anxious feelings. I've trained myself to pay attention to it. And just that practice of paying attention to it is what creates the shift and the forward movement. Um, but it's counterintuitive to what we want to do. We want to be like, get me out of this pain, distract me from this pain, let me numb it, let me escape, let me do anything else but pay attention to it. But what if all we had to do was pay attention to what's calling our attention? Mm.
Good point. Good point. So all of this, you shift into this beautiful roller skating goddess. How did that come to be?
That's so funny. Well, oh my God. I mean, and that's something that goes like way back, Linda, when I was little. I had this silly cheerleader, this like cheerleader character that I started doing when I was super young. And she just like has all these like spastic moves, and like kind of like Mary Catherine Gallagher from Saturday Night Live, and so I've had this goofy ass cheerleader character that um she, kind of comes out at weddings or dance parties. Whenever I get whenever it comes over me, I'll just sort of bust out into this goofy cheerleader mode. And all my friends and family, know about it over the years. And it just, it's so I've always kind of had that in me. And I think that's like the zany spirit, Zirit, zany spirit. I've been a zany spirit from day one. And now I just finally have a term for it. And then, and I've been skating since I was um, in my early teens, or even earlier than that. Maybe when I was 10 or 11 years old, I would go to the skating rink every Friday night and skate. Actually, I think I was 11 years old because I remember I kissed a boy for the first time at the skating rink behind the Pac-Man video game in sixth grade at the skating rink. So I've been skating since I was, yeah, 10 or 11 years old. And then as I got a little older, I got rollerblades, and I've been rollerblading ever since. So then the roller skating and the goofy cheerleader character kind of merged, and I do this goofy skating at the superchargers when I'm charging my Tesla on my road trips. I use the 30 or 40-minute supercharge as a time to just roller skate in the parking lot at the supercharger and set my video up and do my thing. And
I
uh,
love it. I love it. It's,
me too.
the world needs more laughter. Laughter really is the best medicine. And everybody thinks it's an old quote that is just, made up, but no, it's really, really awesome.
It is. It is. And I think a lot of us have these urges to do these silly, playful things, but we temper them as we get older because like in that moment when I was embarrassed to do the handstands, like, oh, what are people going to think of me if I'm just this goofy, you know, uh out of the box person, but
I
Zirit,
love it.
like
I love it.
Zirit is a permission to just be fully you, and it's playful and it's youthful and it's healthy and yeah,
Yeah, living a higher conscious life is not monastic or serious or,
yeah,
we're here to have fun too, people.
that's right. That's exactly right. Yes. Yeah. No, I mean, think of the Dalai Lama just kind of sits there and sort of giggles. He's just like, it's yeah, there's a lightness. There really, at the end of the day, I think there is a lightness and a playfulness to spirituality. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. Now, I don't want to leave here today without talking about your passion project. I know this palliative care is still very important to you, and you're on the hunt for a center.
Yeah.
Tell us about how all that came to be.
Um, well, I have this vision of creating what I'm calling a peaceful dying dome, a geodesic dome. I Several years ago, um, these geodesic domes came across my radar. And a geodesic dome is basically a dome, and it's made up of triangles. So it's a bunch of triangles that come together to create a dome. And uh, it was invented by Buckminster Fuller. I want to say in like the 1940s, and he won some architectural award for it. It's the most efficient, energy efficient architecture. There's a sacred geometry component to it. Anyways, I just have this very strong calling to live in one of these geodesic domes, and uh, part of how they're designed creates a harmonious connection to nature and ourselves. So there's just a lot of layers to these geodesic domes with the sacred geometry. I think it's called like Vastu Shasana architecture. It's some ancient Indian architecture, and these domes fall under that Vastu Shasana. I don't know if I'm saying it right. Vastu Shasana architecture. So there's a spiritual sacred component to the domes, and so I have this vision of creating a dome where specifically in one of the 11 states where medical aid in dying is legal, what was previously referred to as physician assisted suicide, now it's called medical aid in dying. And there are 11 states where that's legal. And Vermont, just last year in 2023, Vermont opened it up to non-residents. So people who are terminally ill and who are suffering, um, and who want to um, voluntarily make a soul transition, they can, in theory, go to Vermont. People from anywhere in the world can go to Vermont and access the option to end their suffering peacefully and voluntarily. And so I would love to create one of these domes in Vermont where uh, clients and their families can come, and I create basically a peaceful dying retreat center where they can have several days to connect and um, talk and laugh and eat and do any sort of ritual ceremony, any process that helps them prepare for saying goodbye, and then take the medicine and go to sleep peacefully in this very beautiful, safe, sacred setting. Um, and yeah, so creating the world's first peaceful dying dome. I have my sights set on that, and yeah, there's a
It,
lot that needs to fall into place, but I feel confident I'll make it happen.
oh, I feel confident you will too. It's such a big deal as I hit 60 next month. I'm like, there's something to be said for that. We just had somebody in our community commit suicide last week. He had terminal cancer,
Okay.
and it was horrific for his wife to find him. And
Mm,
I understand why he did it, but it's sad he had to do it in that way, that he couldn't
yes.
have a place like you're talking about.
Right, right, right. No, I know. I mean, you know, when our soul is ready, our soul is ready, and we should have that right. And another thing I'm very passionate about bringing into this space, this peaceful dying vision is the use of psilocybin in the case of terminal diagnosis, in the medicinal mushrooms, magic mushrooms, psilocybin. Um, More and more anecdotal research is coming out about how psilocybin alleviates the fear of death. And it just seems like an incredibly natural, organic merging of using this sacred plant medicine at the end of life to help with a smooth, peaceful transition. So I feel like using the sacred plant medicine will be a part of this vision, this peaceful dying vision. Absolutely.
Mm. Mm.
You know,
Yeah, psilocybin really, I I am a proponent of it 100%. I believe it can really open people up spiritually.
mhm.
Um, I would hate for Big Pharma to get a hold of it.
I know. Yeah, we'll see how it all unfolds. There's absolutely a psychedelic renaissance taking place right now, and there's a lot of forward movement, thank goodness. And um, it's legal now in Oregon and Colorado, I think. And there's a whole big center just opened up out in Oregon, a program called Inner Trek, and they train you to be a psilocybin facilitator. So yeah, there's a lot of forward movement, but there's still a lot of um, room for making it more accessible.
Yeah.
It's not accessible enough. I mean, we should all just be munching on these mushrooms that grow prolifically and naturally all over the ground. We would
Yeah,
be living
yeah.
in a whole different world if we were using cannabis and psilocybin in the sacred, intentional way that they're here for us to be used. I do believe we'd be living in a different world right now.
Absolutely. And it's not like back in the day, oh yeah, somebody was tripping last night at a party, man, and they tried to fly off the roof. It's like, no, it's not like that.
Right.
Maybe they got some bad LSD or something, but the mushrooms aren't going to make you crazy like that.
Mm-mm, mm-mm, mm-mm. No, they're going to give you exactly what you need. Even what you call a bad trip, there's a theory that there is no bad trip. That when you get really uncomfortable, there's information in there that you need, and that's why in this renaissance of psychedelic assisted therapy and psychedelic assisted healing that they're saying set and setting is so important. Your mindset, your intention going into it, the preparation, um, doing it in a very intentional way, and then the setting, the safe setting that you're in, and who's guiding you through it, or are you guiding yourself with some relaxing music and an eye pillow and have done appropriate preparation, and then the integration, the follow-up integration. So integrating what has come up in these sacred journeys, putting it to work in your life in the world. And so yeah, it's a whole beautiful process.
Yeah, kind of a little bit similar to how ayahuasca is done, but there's way more purging in ayahuasca.
Yeah,
Mushrooms, at least you don't have to purge.
yeah, yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
emotionally, but not physically.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I haven't done ayahuasca and I don't know if I will or not. But yeah, I do. The purging is definitely a big part of that, it seems.
Yeah. Tricia, this has been such a beautiful conversation. I appreciate you
Mm.
being so open and vulnerable. And Mulder comes to say hello. Hello.
Aww. What's his name?
And Mulder,
Mulder.
like Fox Mulder, X-Files.
Oh, how funny. Love it.
He loves the energy of everybody on here and has to come say hi at
Aww.
some point. So, how can people find you, see you? What do you got going on online? And I'll post it below in the comments as well. But if you want to share with everyone before we say goodbye, and if you have anything coming up that you want to talk about, that'd be great too.
Um, my website is zirit.com. Zirit.com is where people can find me, and that's my contact information. What I do now mainly is what I call mindfulness coaching, and just working with people one-on-one over the phone, doing the mindfulness coaching, which is, I gave a little hint of it in the middle of the conversation, which is basically teaching people how to go to the predominant physical sensation, to just pay attention to what's calling our attention, pay attention to what's calling our attention, as a way to quiet the thinking mind. So I do mindfulness coaching over the phone. I also do some plant medicine consulting or guidance, Q&A calls, and then helping people at the end of life. So these three buckets I work in: the mindfulness meditation, the sacred plant medicine, and end of life care. So these are the three things that I offer. And yeah, so my number is on my website at zirit.com, and people are welcome to reach out if they have any more questions or want to hop on a free information call.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much, roller
Thank
skating
you.
goddess. I love
Thank
this
you. It's been a
conversation.
while since I have skated. Things ebb and flow, and I haven't been feeling super light myself. No big deal, but I'm emerging from that, and so thank you for nudging me. I'll get back on my skates here soon.
Awesome, awesome. Have a beautiful day, my dear.
You
Thank you,
too.
everybody. Bye bye.
Bye.